It's no secret, Kyle, that the biggest flaw in this team is the defense. And that's why not only do we think, but we know that the Vancouver Canucks are going to upgrade their defense at some point this season.
Yeah, and I wonder who's going to be the lucky guy coming into Vancouver, and who's going to be the lucky. Well, I wouldn't say lucky actually. Who's going to be the unfortunate guy on his way out? There's a logjam there, and especially at the bottom part of this decor. Question marks are there, and you look at some of the moves the Canucks made over the weekend to assure that they could have as much cap space as possible when needing to make a move like this. And I know Trevor has a list in front of him, and it's going to be fascinating. And Alvin alluded to how a lot of future player movement, as always, has to come down to how the team is doing on the ice. Like, how many wins does the team have? How they're doing? They dictate everything. They dictate ultimately the trade calls happening. So it's ironic how on one side of the spectrum, it's like, oh, if the Canucks are struggling on defense, they're going to make a trade. On the other side, it's like, yo, if the Canucks are ripping it up, they're going to make a trade.
Yeah, 100%. And again, that's why Alvin and the company wanted that flexibility entering the season. They've got even some more long-term flexibility now with Höglander signed to a sweetheart deal. Again, just some fantastic work by the bald-headed beauties, Alvin and Rutherford, doing things for your Vancouver Canucks. Kyle, I wrote down a number of names here, just kind of going through the final rosters for the season. I'm going to look at division rivals first, okay? Because these trades always seem less likely. But then again, we saw the Vancouver Canucks deal twice with the Calgary Flames last season for their two big additions. So, I'm going to try to give out some new names because we've mentioned some names before. Obviously, Rasmus Anderson's name we've mentioned before. Let me point out two more on division rivals. And let's go to the Seattle Kraken, okay? Jamie Oleksiak, okay? Making $4.6 million for the next 2 years, left shot defenseman. He does have a 16-team no trade list. But you're telling me that if Jamie Oleksiak ends up on the trade block, say the Seattle Kraken are mediocre once again, and they got some guys coming up on the left side. Riker Evans specifically comes to mind. They've added, they got Vince Dunn and Brandon Montour as the two top defensemen. Potentially, if the Kraken aren't going anywhere, could they trade a 31, going to be 32-year-old Jamie Oleksiak? And you can't tell me that he wouldn't be a preferred target for the Vancouver Canucks.
Oh, yeah. Guy looks like a basketball player. Perfect member of a potential decor for Tocchet, Adam Foote, and the Vancouver Canucks. I like that one, man. Keep it going.
All right, sounds good. Again, Jamie Oleksiak, not the most offensive stats last season. He had 3 goals and 17 points last season. But again, you're getting this guy for the brawn that he could bring during the playoffs. And again, gonna have to move out some salary potentially, but it can be done for your Vancouver Canucks. The other division rival one I had was Braden McNabb at the Vegas Golden Knights. He's 33 right now. Vegas, again, according to national pundits, they still have the best defensive core in the league. But let's say things don't go according to plan in Vegas this season. They do have some depth on D. I consider putting Nick Hague on this list, but Nick Hague and Braden McNabb are both left shot defensemen. I assume that Vegas, if things don't go well, will decide to get rid of Braden McNabb, who is going to be an unrestricted free agent, and keep Nick Hague in the fold. But Braden McNabb, not as sexy as Jamie Oleksiak, but the dude's won a cup. He's got a lot of experience playing in a top 4 and one of the best defensive cores in the NHL. Could you see him in Vancouver Canucks, Kyle?
And, he has that physical nature to him, and we're, again, Forbort and Darnay are there, and you talk about their physicality, but I feel as if McNabb's physicality and his ability to move around the ice kind of puts him closer to Zadorov when it comes to, again, being physical. Whereas with Forbort and Darnay, it's a different type of physicality that's mainly implemented through size and arm length, like that. Like, I feel as if Darnay and Forbort aren't lining up people for hits. It's kind of just around them. Anyways, continue.
Yeah. All right, let's go to another divisional team, and I think these trades are potentially more likely because they're expected to be a bottom feeder, and it's the San Jose Sharks. Look, the San Jose Sharks have 2 guys on their left side who I think could be targets for the Vancouver Canucks. One name has been brought up time and time again because he's just on a bad team consistently, but it's Mario Ferraro. He's got 2 years left, paying him $3.25 million per season. Certainly overcast as a top pairing defenseman, but as a second or third pairing guy, I think he'd be a rock solid addition. And the other one is, and this might give Canuck fans the ick because he did the gritty against us, but it's Jake Wallman, who just signed in San Jose in the offseason. $3.4 million. He got traded. Sorry, my apologies. making $3.4 million for the next 2 seasons. Had 12 goals last year, so the guy's got some scoring ability. I love the underlying statistics. I think Jake Wallman is actually one of the more underrated defensemen in the NHL. Kyle, do you see either of those guys being targets for the Vancouver Canucks?
I don't know. I thought you were going to say Cody Ceci, man. Anyways, continue.
All right, let's rip through some more physical guys. I'm gonna go with some physical younger guys who, I think might be familiar names with guys that we don't talk about as much. Alexander Romanov of the New York Islanders is a really interesting one to me because the New York Islanders are, again, the NHL's definition of mid. They have Alexander Romanov, who they paid a pretty hefty price for, right? They traded the 13th overall pick in the 2023 draft to get him. But you look at their team and their cap situation is hellacious. Alexander Romanov's up for a new deal at the end of the season. They have so many guys signed long-term. They have other free agents to consider as well. I do wonder if maybe the Islanders aren't as good as people expect. If they fall to the race, do they consider trading a guy like Alexander Romanov, maybe recoup that first-round pick that they lost for him a couple of seasons ago?
First-round pick for Romanov. I don't know. I know it's the price you got to pay. Maybe you're looking at the data and the underlying. I'm obviously not watching the Islanders play games. You know what I'm saying? But that sounds kind of steep, man. That sounds kind of steep, man.
It would be a little steep based on the offensive production, but again, I think for a guy like that, you're going for the defensive ability, the hits and the blocks. And you got to consider the Canucks first round pick is probably going to be like 28th, 29th overall. That's kind of what we're projecting for your 32. Okay, there you go. All right, let me just fire quickly through some other names on the list that I have here. And Kyle, you can just pick any of them you want to talk about. Ivan Provorov in Columbus, 1 year left on his deal, paying him $4.75 schmil. Ole Mott in Detroit, $3 million left, 1 year left on his deal. In Pittsburgh, you got Marcus Pettersson, $4.025 for 1 year. David Savard in Montreal, he's a right side guy, $3.5 million for 1 year. And a couple other younger guys in St. Louis. Got Martin Fehervary, $2.65 for 2 more years. The guy hits like a truck. And you have big Alexander Oleksiak, would be more of a developmental Vincent Desharnais-like option. 1 year deal, paid $825,000.
Damn. Who was I'm blanking out. Who was the defenseman? Who was the guy that you mentioned before the last two?
Dave Savard, Montreal Canadiens. Marcus Pettersson, Pittsburgh Penguins.
There you go. Marcus Pettersson with the Penguins, man. I haven't watched him play recently, but he seems to be someone that's like Carson Soucy-esque, just safe, can make a good first pass. You know what I'm saying? Obviously, Tocchet, I'm assuming, would know a little bit about him. Alvin Rutherford, obviously, as well. But a safe player like that who can just not create chaos around him and create efficiency for a team that's looking to be better off the rush and produce more offense. And it's not to say that Pettersson is like this offensive force. It's just, again, being able to make a breakout pass is going to be instrumental, straight up for this team taking the next level off offensively. And I always bring up that play, but it's one of those things. Again, the Canucks lost Ian Cole and Nikita Zadorov. They lost Zadorov and they replaced him with Forbort and Desharnais. And I just feel as if Forbort and Desharnais are not making that pass that Nikita Zadorov made at the third period in game one when he launched that like 2,000-foot pass to Dakota Joshua, who dropped it off to Connor Garland. You know what I'm saying? Like, those types of plays are not happening with number 5 and number 6 on your team right now, and we need to fix that.
Yeah, I like you said, Kyle, I think Marcus Pettersson, last season played a career high 22.40 per game, almost became a number 1 defenseman there in Pittsburgh, even with Letang and Carlson on the roster. So Marcus Pettersson, again, a guy with familiarity for the organization, a cap hit that you can digest, and again, a familiarity with his management team. I think he could certainly be an option for the Vancouver Canucks if the Pittsburgh Penguins predictably fall out of the race.